Then go.
Is it? Yeah. Is it 3, 2, 1? Then go. I think.
When do we start, Anish? Do we
Yep,
start
soon. Is
It's
it now?
always on shoot. You always go on shoot.
3,
You
2,
always
1,
go
shoot.
on shoot.
Yeah.
Ah, I see. Are we live?
Yes.
Is anyone watching? Why don't we just wait? Why don't we just sit here and just
wait for them?
I'm not doing anything.
Oh, Anish is using a Boiled Sports Rocks glass. Anish,
guy.
be careful. Two hands, Anish.
I know. No, it's never while I'm drinking it. It's always the next morning when I'm sober, cleaning it. Every time, every single glass I've ever broken is always the next morning when I'm cleaning it very carefully.
Exactly. You don't ever have car crashes when you're bombed. You only do it when you're sober, putting it in the driveway.
Which is why you should. Nope, I'm not going to. Nope.
Careful. Don't even make the joke. Don't even make the joke.
Hey, they told me it was all right.
Hello, gentlemen.
Welcome to Boiled Sports Handsome Hour season finale, I guess. I don't know. Football season finale. How about that?
Not bad.
Now, is there another poll? Serious question. There's another poll. Another poll comes out, doesn't it?
An end of season poll. Actually, no, this is like a point of contention. Yes, an end of season football poll happens, but an end of season basketball poll, I don't think they actually do that.
I thought they did.
That is how Maryland never ended up number 1, even though they won the national title.
Right. That's fair.
Which is ridiculous.
Really stupid.
It's stupid. Really dumb.
And I'll be glad to trade that 1 week at number 1 for a national title. Just putting that out there. You can expunge that off.
And we don't ever need to be ranked number 1 again. Just win a national title.
Nope.
I told you fold the programs. I'd fold the athletic department if we win the national title.
Or just take a few years off. You know what, Matt?
Sure.
You've earned it.
We'll take the death penalty. Sure. Not because we've earned it, just because we're on a hot streak.
We're
walking away from the table.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no rising from that point. This hypothetical land we're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I was asking if there's another ranking because Purdue's got to be ranked now, right? They got to be ranked. Football.
That's the thing. It's weird. Is I think they should have been ranked weeks ago. That before the Bulls. I looked at it as like they don't have a bad loss.
Well, remember when we talked about they got ranked and then they got pasted by Ohio State, which
everyone gets pasted by Ohio State.
But I remember when we all came back that next week and we said, well, that's it. They're not going to be ranked again. And we were right. They never got close. Arkansas is ranked, like Kentucky's ranked. Good programs, but not good years. I don't want to say good programs.
Right.
It's stretching it a little bit, getting a little wild here.
Ohio State's offensive numbers are absurd.
What? Okay, so I missed that game. I missed the second half.
Gosh.
I literally turned it off to go watch Spider-Man, like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, because I saw the latest Spider-Man today, and I hadn't seen the Andrew Garfield ones.
Andrew Garfield Spider-Man stinks.
They were fine. It was fine.
I thought they were okay.
He's like 30 years old. He doesn't look young.
He is clearly not a high schooler. Correct. You are correct there. He's clearly
I'm lost right away in that movie, that series. I don't like it.
I tuned in to see young high school boys.
Exactly. Always.
So I left and I was like, wait a minute. Ohio State won? And then I looked at the stat line and I was like, wait a minute. This freshman receiver had how many yards? How do these blue bloods always do this? It's like you never feel good whenever a team loses or has to, have like 2 of the 5 best wide receivers sit out. But you feel a little less bad for Bama and Penn State and Georgia and all of these teams who have like 5 stars winning the wings, who are some of the best players in the country.
They lose a 5-star
line,
and they just play other 5 stars.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They just come off the put them in there.
Pop them right out.
So I assume this is football. Sagarin has Purdue at number 22.
I sure hope it's not basketball.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see coming tomorrow. I don't know. It could. I think Purdue should be in the 20s, and that'd be fun. When was the last time Purdue ended a season ranked? We should probably have done this research.
I'd say 03. Or 03. That'd be my guess. That was the last time they won 9. 04 was the year that they got up to number 5, but then finished 7-5. So I don't think they finished ranked that year.
AP Post. The last time Purdue finished in the top 25 was 2003. When they finished,
you heard me say that a minute ago, right?
9.
I say things all the time, and then you guys are like, "I don't recall you saying that."
And 18. No, they finished number 18, so they were even in top 20. They were top 20 team.
That 03 team was good, and I remember we were all like, we were exactly like we are now. We were like, "Oh, next year."
So
they're
what
gonna be
could
so good
go
next year.
wrong?
And then
what
they started
could go
5-0. We
wrong?
were like, oh my God, it's happening. And it's never. And here we are. It just took us till now to get back to that feeling. Took us a mere
19 years.
Just wanted to say we are calling for 12 wins next year, right? 12 regular season wins.
I like that now you're the insane one. Like
yes, correct.
I said, did I say it to you, Anisha?
You've been calling 10-win seasons for the last, I think, half.
No, he's been requesting.
I said I said we need one. We need a 10-win season. I would like
nothing but your finest 10-win season.
I would like a Duke or Kentucky vintage 10-win season. I like the people who are like, look at. So there were people complaining, and I don't want to spend any time talking about Iowa but I know Anish loves Iowa.
Fraud.
There were people talking about. There were Iowa fans though complaining to Pat Vint and the guys that we know from the formerly Blackhawk Opens. He was like, wait a minute. Somebody said something to him like, if they were any good, they would have at least contended for they would have had a chance at the Big Ten championship. He goes, they literally did have they were in the Big Ten title game. Fans are just idiots. And I don't think Purdue fans would be idiots if Purdue won 10 games. I think Purdue fans would be drunk on that for months if Purdue won 10 games.
Speaking of being drunk on that for months, today I went to grab my trusty Boiled Sports Rocks class. Limited numbers available on boiledsports.com. They are delightful, by the way. I was filling it with my brown liquor of choice, and I was like, the last time I was in Tennessee, I picked up this handy dandy, nice little Tennessee roaming man. It's a tiny little bottle, and I don't know if you can see that percentage proof there.
Gosh.
That is 57%, 56.9%.
Yeah.
So I will be.
Does it say barrel strength or what's that one say?
Yeah, it's cask strength. So I may be. There may be one or two more Iowa rants in me with the podcast today.
It wasn't a stingy pour either. Bartender did you well.
This is celebration for Tennessee. What happened? Hey, Boiler Dad, did anything happen in Tennessee? I'm like Motor City Boiler here. I've been out of town. I've been out of the loop for a couple days. Is there anything that anything that I missed?
I have to. Well, before he answers that, I want him to answer it, kind of given this context, because I kind of have a theory about how bad Tennessee fans are. Right? Mm-hmm. See if you can follow me on this. Okay. You obviously, as a Purdue fan, always want Purdue to win every game, right? Sure. You're at a game. You're most concerned with Purdue winning. When they beat an Ohio State, yeah, it's neat that Ohio State lost, but you're really happy that Purdue won. I feel like Tennessee fans have this magic way where I would imagine at some point in that game you thought, all right, Purdue may not win this game, but I really want Tennessee to lose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right? Like you could live with Purdue not winning that game. You really would have a hard time living with Tennessee winning that game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Here's the weird thing, though. I mean, I said this in the QuickCast. I had very positive interactions with Tennessee fans one-on-one, but as a group, they're morons. Like flat out, they're the worst. And I don't understand what happens there. I don't know if we're like there's a majority of idiots, and then they just make everybody
rile each other up.
Yeah, I don't know. But like super pleasant. I mean, in restaurants, pleasant, like walking by people, talking to them. I talked to a guy for 10 minutes in the restaurant.
I thought you were about to say restroom.
I was say restroom.
It's like, I just had,
He's at the urinal.
He was helping me in the restroom.
Look, man, I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
He's right next to him. Well, what do you do? Yeah.
No, it's weird. So like I also had a weird like at the end of the game, I really just wanted to see the game end without injuries because the players were so gassed, Purdue players. And I was like, no more broken ankles, no more guys rolling up. I'm kind of okay with Fatty just going for 2 and the game ending. I'd be like,
I was worried about it going 3 and 4 and 5 overtimes and then guys getting just so tired.
Yes, and they were so gassed.
That one they were already gassed.
The last 5 minutes, there was no energy left in those defenses on either side. I mean, the Purdue touchdowns, the one Brock's touchdown in the last few minutes there where the defender had interfered with him several times and then tried to tangle with him.
They just fell down and looked up. He's on one knee watching him go down the left sideline.
Brock kind of was looking back.
And Brock had no knees.
But he looked back in that like
no knees.
Right, where it's like, there's really nobody near me. I don't even have to run hard.
It's awesome.
Great. Man, that was... Yeah.
Is that the wildest win? Is that the wildest win that we have seen in, let's say, the time of Boiled Sports? Obviously, probably, right?
I don't think there's 16 years.
The Foster Farms Bowl was close.
When
it was close.
It
was not that many back and forths, but Purdue giving up a touchdown
5
late.
minutes are just
basically what happened in that game was one of those exchanges. Like Arizona scored to take the lead, and then Purdue came right down and scored an exciting touchdown to win. But that was it. And we saw that happen. We were like,
and it was Brom year 1, and like the emotions kind of took over, and it was like, oh my God, this is the next era.
Right.
Oh man.
And then, but like even kind of going back to the last couple of years of Tiller, like there was that one, the Motor City Bowl, the Dan Lefevre versus Curtis Painter, epic game.
But wasn't that to get to 7 wins or maybe 8?
Yeah, I mean, like again, all of these are none of these are
7, I think,
and none of them have been seasons like this one, where if you look back, none of the wins were really like fluky.
Nope.
Like some of them, like it was in the sense like Iowa and Michigan State were the closest ones to that, and it was just like Purdue executed, like Purdue did what they tried to do. Yeah, exactly. And so they accomplished what they set out to do. That's not necessarily a fluke. That's a success, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we would have, if the team would not have scored 13 points for 4 straight weeks going into Iowa, I think all of us would have called it. So I don't think it's like, it's out of the realm to say that none of these wins were fluky and none of the losses were bad. Like Minnesota was like the closest one, but like
that was bad.
Let's look at
sucked, but
they're a 9-win team, so it's not the worst.
So let's do a quick review of that, what you just said, and because I was writing these same notes. I said, okay, 9 wins exceeds everybody's expectations here on this podcast.
Yep.
I think the greatest expectation we had within Boiled Sports was 7, legitimately.
I think we did 8 with the bowl win. Like
that was like best case scenario, right?
Yeah,
literally.
Okay, 7 wins and then a bowl win.
Right, and I'll admit I was thinking 5 or 6 wins.
You and me were secretly on the 5-win train.
Right.
Like we were like, wow, that's the purgatory.
So you get 9 wins. You beat 2 number 2 opponents. Get the bucket back. Bowl victory, no bad losses.
And your road ranked win too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And more
4 road wins. And I would put this road win in
this is 5.
Win,
they put it up there. I thought they said in the broadcast before the game was over, Purdue had 4 wins away from home because I think
right.
How does that make sense? They couldn't have had another neutral one. That's what they said.
Chicago.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Northwestern.
So they have 5 non-Ross-Ade wins. Let me give you another one that I thought was amazing. Purdue just won as many games in this season as Darrell Hazel won at Purdue.
Yeah, incredible. We did 50 games and 9 wins. 3 of those were Indiana State, I'm pretty sure. Those were
9
years.
Wins Darrell Hazel has at Purdue. Jeff Brom got it this year.
It's incredible. I mean, so that 2000. So let's kind of go to the most recent, time that we have experienced this, and most people would not have experienced this. Is the 2003? Unless you're a sad lifetime Purdue fan.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, even that year. You can't say that they didn't have any bad losses because game 1 they lost to Bowling Green.
Right. Mm-hmm. That was a Tiller special, man.
Yeah.
He would do shit like that all the time.
Right.
And we used to think maybe he's dogging it on purpose because he did it in 97.
Not opening the playbook. Yeah. Felt like it.
Well, but he probably figured they didn't need to, and they shouldn't have needed to. But anyway, go on.
The last time I can't even pull. I would have to go even further back to find the last time Purdue ended a season without a bad loss, really, without like a really bad letdown loss. Minnesota was disappointing, but Minnesota kind of just beat Purdue up, and Minnesota's what it is.
A 9-win team.
Yeah.
Like them or not, they won 9 games. So you lost to a 9-win Minnesota and a 9-win Wisconsin, both of which pissed you off because you knew during those games they were winnable.
But that's all of a sudden Purdue is now at that level where it's like we expect to beat Wisconsin.
And then the other 2, think about that,
Minnesota.
Guys. Those are 2 9-win teams they lost to. They lost to Notre Dame, who was what, an 11 or 12-win team? 11 wins.
11 wins.
And they lost to a 12-win Ohio State team. And the only one that was...
And they're not ranked. This goes back to what we were saying. That's so dumb.
No bad losses, 2 wins over number 2 teams in the country.
Well, and Motor City Boiler says no weather losses either, Boiler Dad. No weather losses.
Right.
And I put this in the post game that I'm sure nobody read because nobody reads post anymore. But
very good post, by the way. All the people who are very good post. I've already pimped this thing one time. I'll do it again. That was a good post.
So, but if you look
like
at
real analysis, real words.
Look at the end of the season. They won. What was it? What did I say? 5 of the last 6, or 4 of the last 6. So whatever it was. The point is, they didn't wilt as the season got into November. They got stronger. Bromvember is a thing. It's been a thing.
Right.
The teams, if they're not a great team, if they're a 4 or 5 win Brom team, it's not because they started 4-0 and then fell apart. Mm-hmm. They are what they are throughout the season. And his teams, I mean, look at that game. You were there. You saw this in person. Mm-hmm. That team, I mean, we've said this for years. All Purdue fans really want is a team that fights hard and doesn't quit. Because we've seen Purdue teams that look like they quit. And holy hell did they fight in that game. That was amazing to watch those guys. The guys who, like Brock, who wouldn't come out, who was told, like they said,
no.
The sideline guys were saying that they said, well, you should probably come out because you can barely walk. And he said, nope, not going to play.
This is the thing. First, getting back to that Tennessee game, the post J Money was excellent because that's why I really wanted you were saying like, hey, if I had fingers that worked, I would write like the half dozen bad decisions that Heupel made to actually lose them the game before that controversial touchdown, that they'll complain about incessantly.
The Athletic wrote an article with that the refs stole the game from Tennessee.
Oh, of course. But all you have to do is pull up that post because and some of them were like that last drive at the end of the first half, which I'd completely forgotten because the second half was 3.5 hours long.
Right.
But what is he dropping Hooker back to throw for from his own 30 or 25 with 30 seconds?
And usually if you're throwing those bubble screens, you're making sure that it's you're making sure it's inbounds. You're just trying to give them a different look and move the ball forward, keep the clock moving.
You want to hand the ball off and maybe you gain 15, 20, 25 yards. Then you go, okay, now we're going to throw it towards the end zone. But what are you thinking?
And I'll actually also.
I don't know. How about this one? Why not just drag a player across the middle of the field and have him run past everybody who's already tired?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so much, so many other things they could have done that they didn't do. I think Heupel got so badly out coached, like catastrophically, like generationally bad coaching. And this is a guy that they've somehow moved the program forward because he's installed some things.
I will go on record. I think J Money and I have gone on record saying we think they made a great after.
I think he's a great hire for them.
Insane thing. Like I think he's great for them.
But
not in that, not in any kind of pejorative way. I really do think that he's a great fit.
But we've talked many times at basketball and football. There's differences between a guy who's good for a program and will get them out of the mire they've been in, and a guy who knows how to coach in a game. We've seen it at Purdue. You see guys who were good at one thing, but really not good at Painter's a great recruiter.
Earlier in his
program
career,
runner.
I'm sure that Heupel is going to get better, but wow, was he a disaster today? And wow, was that defense a disaster today? Or I mean, on whatever Friday,
what day,
whatever day, who cares? Time was not real. I don't go back to work until next week, so all those days are Tuesdays for all I can. But that was why I wanted you, that's why I was like, you really need to. So if anybody hasn't read that, just to scan and remember the game again, that was a really good one. But then the other thing is they were playing with all their horses, and Purdue was literally playing, to Dowd's point, with half of their team out, not just the opt-outs, which are the 2 All-Americans.
Not just the best offensive and defensive player they have, but then all the other guys who were out
best offensive linemen. Maybe by the end of the game, 4 wide receivers, including Bell? Purdue was down 4 wide receivers, Bell and Wright.
I called out some of the guys. I mean, you made a great point during the game to us when we were saying, when O'Connell threw that one terrible interception over the middle.
Awful.
We were
And you made a really good, you said it was a bad throw for sure, and he shouldn't have done it, but you made a great point that you said you got guys out there who have not, who not only haven't played much, had not played, period. They had.
It was awesome during the press conference because AOC was asked that, and he was like, actually, even though we don't do that because we have
They
so
work
many
with 'em.
players that we need to keep
Yeah.
on a rep count.
Yeah.
We've actually had a lot of practice reps because they're just filling in at this point.
Right.
So apparently, like over the second half of the season, all of these new guys did have a ton. At least the receivers had a ton of
In
practice reps.
practice.
In
But, like,
practice, and I would
that
say,
is
so
in
here's the
practice.
thing: you have to be able to react to a defense with some experience. You have to be able to find the soft spot in a zone. You have to be able to have the wherewithal to say, play is broken down. Where do I go now? Right? I mean, have a second and third move to go against that defense. And I don't think those guys had that.
I mean, and so to all Tennessee fans crying, please make sure to @ me on Twitter because I enjoy every single one of them. Every Tennessee fan complaining gives me strength.
I will
I
say,
thrive
I
on
got a
this.
tactic for you guys. It's pretty fun though, and I did this in person a couple times. If I saw a Tennessee fan on the sidewalk after the game, I'd say, "Hey, good game," like fist bump, and then they'd say, "Refs gave you that one." I said, "Yep, you're right." I mean, what? I don't care.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
Doesn't
Sure.
that suck for you?
Yeah.
I mean, like, exactly. I don't want to argue. We have
I
everything
know
on our
it's
side.
not true, but yeah, sure, right.
And then to the third point, which is, the first being all of the times Heupel gave up the game, the second being Purdue was playing mostly backups, and the third being, okay, let's say it all boiled down to that one play. It wasn't a touchdown.
Yeah, sorry.
Forward progress was stopped. The ref was running onto the field before he reached his arm out, and he was being pulled.
Before he reached his arm out, you mean before his teammate pulled his arm across the goal line?
So it's like, what are we talking about here? But
they will latch on to anything.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But it's not just, it's like, it's media who
also on the other side, the refs were consistently horrible. The review refs were bad. I think they took away 2 Purdue catches that were catches. I mean, like that bothered me. I'm like, how's that not a catch? And they seem to be looking at everything that was a Purdue pass, right? But on the other side, it's like Brom had to beg them to look at the one
that short hop
off the ground. Yes,
which I said. I said watching it live, I could tell it was a short hop.
Right.
And then they had to beg them to look at it. Like,
well, Brom was livid a couple times, like coming way out on the field, and that was one of them. The other time he came way on the field was, I think, was it near the 2-point conversion or something? He was way down there because we were down in that corner. That's where my seats were. And I can't remember. He was mad at something, but he was way out on the field. So is there a moment? Is there a moment in the game?
That one's so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because he was embarrassed still from the last time, which now we can officially, on the record, I think, we can officially now mention the drubbing that Purdue took in the Motor City Bowl 3 years ago, because now it's been erased from the record. It's fine. We're good. It's redeemed.
It's like when you fail a class and you take the same class again and they redline it out.
Exactly.
That's right. That's what happens.
He wanted that one bad, man.
Yep. Was there a moment for either of you guys? Because I had one. I recorded it. I still have it on my phone. But was there a moment you thought that's the play that won the game and it wasn't? Because there was so much more football that was played?
The late Brock touchdown. I thought that was was incredible. That was where I thought Tennessee looked like they gave up. Right. Like that was where, that was coming on the heels of what I think Jay Buddy's answer is going to be. But yeah, I thought.
Well, I was going to say, you say when it looks like they gave up. You don't think they look like they gave up on the Payne Durham touchdown? Because that was the freaking. I wasn't going to say that as my answer. I was going to say, and I don't think this is when I thought, oh, they won the game. But I felt the proverbial momentum shift when Heupel decides to go for it on 4th down. Another play I showed. Up 1 in a chip shot field goal range. I understand. So somebody came at me, I think a Tennessee person, acting like I was an idiot for that tweet, saying, and do you know what the probabilities were? Going for it, the metrics suggest 76% of the time you win. Not going for it, 73% of the time you win. And he acted as though I was a moron for saying you kick it there. I said, that's not statistically significant. If it was 80-20, then you could call me an idiot. But my point is, you have to, like, this is where the analytics and pro and anti-analytics people don't quite, like,
it's where the people who don't quite get it and just see the numbers
Sometimes you have to read the situation, right?
When it is even, like when they are within, this is how
now it's a
statistics
now
work.
it's a call. Now it's a call when they're even, and that's what coaching is. And here's what I would say: that was a 15-play drive, and they had talked earlier in the game about how Tennessee's offensive coordinator will tell his
him it's
coach,
over. Yep.
We got to end this drive.
Yep.
The guys are tired. They were tired. Both teams were tired, but that's you just told this whole story.
Right.
That's the time you kick. You make it more than a field goal game. Now it's 4 points. Now Purdue.
And now we got to go for
the fallacy of the predetermined outcome, right? Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen next. But now Purdue knows they have to score a touchdown.
Right.
If they do that, right? They didn't. Purdue stuffed them. And I thought, that's exactly what I wanted. It's a 1-point game now, and Purdue has the ball back. And you just took their soul by smashing them in the face on a poorly executed. That's the other problem I had with that, right? And fine if Heupel wants to be a bad coach. He rushes the play because Purdue's lining up quickly. Mm-hmm. And if you rewatch that clip, Tennessee's they stack the line. It's a run. There's no doubt it's a run. And if you watch, there's one receiver up high. And he just does that thing where he stands there. Like when they used to every now and then split like Tom Brady out wide. And he just kind of stands there and watches the play. There was no doubt. There was nothing happening but a run up the middle. I think Purdue knew that too. Like it was 4th and 2, I believe. It wasn't 4th and 1. It wasn't 4th and inches. He had to get 6 feet. Sorry.
So here, can you guys explain to me? Maybe you guys figured this out watching on TV because I could not figure this out. You have a coach that went for it on 4th and 2 there. You had a coach that went for it on 4th and 9 after that penalty that sent him back 5 yards, right? Mm-hmm. And that same coach wouldn't go for 2 to end the game and win it. See, like Jay, you were like, okay, I get it because situationally it wasn't deep enough into the game. But this guy has no problem in believing his bigs can beat your bigs, and they're going to hit you in the mouth, and it's easy, right? He believes that. He clearly believes that. But he kept kicking points after. I'm like, he could end this damn game right now.
I think there's a big difference mentally with boneheads like him. An extra point versus a 2. It's so ingrained that you don't go for 2 unless you absolutely must.
Right.
And then I think 4th and 2 on the 30. That's seen as defensible or defendable, I think, if you don't get it, right? I think it's a mindset thing. I don't think it's – I know what you're saying.
It doesn't make any sense to me. The lack of consistency, being a gunslinger at some time and other times you're not. I don't get it. Because,
and that's not just the hypo thing. That's about you about Brom, right? Until this year when it's or until after the 4 13-point games, which is like, when is he going to just –
By the way, Mark Garrity, sorry to interrupt you. Mark Garrity just made a great point, and I heard that during the broadcast, and I forgot about it.
That was huge.
On that 4th down stuff,
they brought
subbed out the whole D line on 3rd down.
Yep.
And that's another fail on Tennessee's part.
Right.
You have to see that. You have to see that and know these guys are not exhausted. Now, maybe he's thinking, like you said, he's so arrogant. Maybe he's thinking, well,
these are the 2s. Yeah.
Right. Or 4s in this case.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, how amazing is it that Purdue can line change a defensive line without their All-American and still be okay?
I'm fine.
I mean,
fine. You guys are tired? Oh,
could you have imagined that not just in the Hazel era, because we all know,
right.
but it's like,
there
could you
were
imagine
no
that during the Hope
right.
era, during the last years of Tiller? Like,
can you imagine Danny Hope executing anything like that? Like
any
15 guys would have run on the field and one would have run off, and it would have been. What are you talking about?
Danny Hope is the ultimate chaos engine. I love it.
Oh, man.
So, hey, can I ask you guys another question? This follows up brilliantly on that the point by Mark. Okay, so have we seen the Purdue football program get over a hump that it hasn't been since Tiller, where depth is built in so well that this wasn't a fluke? And I think you could build the case in 2 places this season where it showed that this depth isn't a fluke and that he has really built up the program to the point where it's actually a program. It's not just a good team. Mm-hmm. There's more here behind it. Can we make that argument, or am I being wishful and being too gold-colored glasses by thinking?
I think a lot of fan bases make the mistake of looking at recruiting rankings to see whether a team really goes 2-3 deep at each position, right? I think you need these kind of situations. where you have an entire program going on the road to play an SEC team functionally in a bowl game. And you know that not, like almost double-digit number of backups got real time on both sides, on, total both sides of the ball. And everybody stepped up. Everybody was up to the challenge. That's the kind of thing where it's like,
it's a mentality, right? As much as the
program-wide,
physicality, it's between the ears.
program wide, all of a sudden, everybody, I mean, like, we are, it's now like the, hey, did you know Jimmy Graham played basketball thing for us? But like the fact that AOC was 8th on a 9-man depth chart when he first got to Purdue, like, and now he's the guy. Now he's the next guy in the cradle. Who 2 months ago would have said that AOC is the next guy in the cradle? You know what I mean? And so, and
I think he's in, right? Do you guys agree? I think you said that.
I don't
probably
see how.
Not, but he's going to be. Like,
Man.
like,
see, we had this discussion with Blau a couple of years ago. The three of us did, and I think we all agreed that Blau was in.
Again, he's that. But if AOC leaves now, he's at that same kind of Blau case, and so I don't think so.
Right.
But I think
if he throws for 4,000 yards next year, which he could do,
wild, absolutely insane. And so it's like, Boiler Dad can't believe it. He's incredulous.
What? 4,000 yards?
Oh, no,
I had watching this on video. Camera. That was fantastic. That was fantastic.
No, to me, why that win feels so much more momentous than pretty much anything that we've seen, including the Iowa win, including the Michigan State win, is that it was with a lot of backups. And it did show that everybody was ready, and it showed the mentality of the whole team. That is exactly. Yeah. That is a program win.
So here's the thought about it being a program versus just a team, right? Okay, we watch Ohio State just absolutely just loaded to the gills, and Alabama, it's stupid. It's not even. It doesn't make any sense, and whatever.
It's a different sport.
It's a different sport. Whatever. Okay, but the thing you have to do is you have to say, okay, we're going to have bolstered positions where we have really, really good talent. We're going to have developmental positions where guys like Coach Shepard are going to take good and make them great. And we're going to be able to, we're going to build enough depth that we're not going to be forced to use those guys right away. But the big thing is going to be, okay, the systems are in place and everybody is buying into those systems, right? That's kind of the you say, okay, this is what we do. This is what we have done. You got to understand, like Carmen said this in his podcast, his wrap up, that you can say to a player, hey, you better be ready because you may play. Or you can say, hey, you better be ready because did you see that AOC had to play as a walk-on? Did you see that we had a guy who didn't play a down have 2 catches in a bowl game, right? You can just say, just go through a litany of truths, right? That's a lot differently than theorizing. So getting guys all ready and saying mentally, you better be ready to play because we have shown time and time again, not only will you be called on, but you're expected to do big things. That next man up thing is not a joke. It is not fake here. It is needed, right?
The other big thing is like that wins like this, when everybody is watching, when it's as crazy as it is, when it's against a name brand like Tennessee, which they still are. And it was, I think it must have been the only game that was on at the time. So everybody who was interested was watching.
You said the number just climbed the entire game.
Just like John was saying, with the transfer rules, the way you build depth is to build a fun team, to have marquee wins, and to show that you're going to get playing time. Right. Do you think that it was lost on some of these transfer, potential players that the whatever winner of the game MVP was a transfer into the program? You know what I mean? Brock Thompson was the biggest impact player of that game. And so, like, without Brock, if he is like a normal human being, if I had needed 2 knee surgeries, I'm not walking to the kitchen.
I was going to say,
right?
Like,
I'm done. Goodness. That's it. I'm done walking. Just cut my legs off and put those blades on, and that's it.
Brock also, what's interesting to me is that I couldn't believe how pedestrian his stats were until this week. Yeah. I didn't realize he had like 20, 30 yards here and there. You know why? Because the couple touchdowns he had were circus touchdowns, right? He had that one in the end zone in the corner that looked like no human, that didn't look possible. It looked like he threw it into the tunnel and somehow he just reached up and caught it. Right. And I couldn't believe how I thought he had, your school's got a good wide receiver in core when you're like, he was one of the guys with a 200-yard game. I think he did. Now he is, but he wasn't going into that game. And it was funny because AOC started to obviously look for him a lot, right? Mm-hmm. He started to really look for him. And Payne Durham. Oh, Payne Durham. We haven't talked about Payne Durham. That touchdown catch and run, God, did that just warm my soul? Just watching Tennessee players. What did they do? Did they think they went out of bounds?
In the SEC, it just means more, man.
It just means more. They showed it.
Don't ever talk down about the SEC. The SEC dominant. Do you know that they've got 2 teams in the national title game? That means that Tennessee is great, even though they're not one of the
great.
2.
Means Kentucky's great. Means
Kentucky might be able to take Tennessee because
Kentucky is pretty good.
But it's just like that run was incredible. Like that Payne Durham, like what an exclamation mark.
That's another one I had to put up just to how I put that on Twitter because of how poor the effort was. I mean, even if they thought, it looked to me like they thought they must have all stepped out of bounds as a group because one of the guys looks down at his feet. And if that was the case, and he didn't want to continue tackling a guy because he thought he was out of bounds, I do get that. You don't want to give him 15 yards.
Get in trouble,
But there's 3 more guys around him. Yeah. They couldn't have all thought that. And then when they realize he's not down, the chasing was so like, I can't believe we have to chase him.
Payne's not the fastest guy, right? And they weren't going up there to make a good tackle. It was like they're just running next to him to be in a parade.
My favorite
escort.
Thing, my favorite thing was you're always afraid when somebody is stiff arming one way that the other guy coming on the other side is going to pop.
Yeah,
I was not afraid because and neither was Payne because he clearly saw the guy coming from behind. And he was like, "This dude couldn't get me 50 yards out. What is he going to do? Take the ball from me?"
Yeah, you're little.
So he slowed down to stiff arm the guy behind him.
Yeah.
It was amazing. He was more concerned that they were going to dive at his legs and trip him than actually pull him down intentionally.
Plus when you got a tight end running 60 yards, man, it takes a long time.
That reminded me of when Dallas Clark made Purdue look dumb at Iowa, where he ran like 90 and it took forever.
It took like most of the quarter to get
Yes, exactly.
The one thing I'll give Iowa for the fraudulent program credit for on offense. Oh, those
white
tight ends are fun,
they're
big biscuit-eating, corn-fed tight ends. I love it.
And now Purdue's got them.
And now
Purdue has
Garrett Miller's up next.
An endless array.
They're good. They're good. They're deep at that position. I put Ferry's there. He's ready to step up. He's starting.
Herdman was there.
Herdman was there. I mean, I know Hopkins doesn't fit all these parameters that we've just created arbitrarily because he's very athletic and he happens not to be completely white. But that guy. I mean, look at the line of tight ends we've just named.
Yeah, incredible.
That's Herdman. I mean, this is great. There's a rhythm happening now. And here, let me go. Let me add my little part of what happened on that play. And you guys already know this. Part of what happened on that play is that fatigue that was on. It was already set. Right.
How bad was
they were already beat, and it's really hard to tackle a big guy. And you have to when you're 40 pounds lighter, right? You're like, okay, I got to go put my shoulder pad in his groin, drive him through, right? Instead, they're like, you know what? I'm gonna patty cake him out of bounds. He's gonna be out of bounds. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then my buddy's gonna come over and here's gonna shove him too. That's enough. And then the third guy's gonna be there to root us on and to watch. So, everybody gives him a hug. Everybody gather around. Give this big tight end a hug. He's gonna quit. The funny thing is, so that play ran right at us. Okay, so we're in the place in the stadium where you're watching just like Tennessee players are watching. Play's dead. Oh, wait, play's not dead. And he's coming right at you. And our whole section is like, wow. Like it was great. By the way, so my son, he's off camera here. LBD says, I looked away at the game. I looked at my phone and said, okay, that play's done.
Right.
Why wouldn't you think he's right by the out of bounds? All they literally have to do is chuck him, right?
Right.
They couldn't even
hit him hard. Yeah. Hit him hard. There were 3 or 4 guys around him. So even if you had to team up, But
listen, that's where it's like, hey, don't let Georgia and Alabama to say that all SEC teams are this tough and
the
this
SEC has two
deep
good
and
teams.
this. Yeah.
Yep.
No, the SEC has two
very
great teams.
Yes.
And then the rest
and a
of them
bunch
are
of
like
teams.
It's the Big Ten plus Nick Saban, guys. Let's be real honest.
Yeah.
That's what the SEC is.
Yeah,
Nick Saban is the great drunkifier of the SEC. He's incredible. He never stops. They're always there.
I think we can put Georgia.
No.
I mean, Kirby, I think. Well, I mean, you let him do it again.
No.
But
no,
I
because
Kirby's
they gave up that game versus Alabama, which makes me say they're not.
I don't think
Kirby
you
can't
put me
beat
down
Saban.
on it. Could put me down on it. I don't think they're going to be able to do it again.
They bring up John Younger's question.
No, I agree. It's tough to beat a team twice like that. But wouldn't you agree betting against Saban is like kind of not a great idea?
Oh, no. Never bet against Saban. Correct. You are correct. Never put money, never do any of this. I am just,
I agree with you, though. If you're forcing me to pick in that game, I probably have to say you have to favor Georgia in that game, in that championship.
That being said,
so John go ahead. Younger says, did Yanni see the field at all against Tennessee?
Yes, he did. He was on special teams at least 2 or 3 times. So wasn't seeing the field during regular play, though. And that's the thing. It's I think part of it is because guys like Alexander were playing through. Man.
I mean, and he wanted
anybody who says he's acting wasn't paying attention because he was hurt early in the game. His hamstrings bothered him. His hamstring and groin, it looked like, because he kept punching himself in the groin, which is a funny look. I'm not going to tell you why it's a funny look, but if you guys start punching yourself in the groin, you might see on your own.
Try it out.
Give it a
wind up. Fist up.
Really? Yeah, just pow. But there were a couple questions asked earlier about Purdue faking injuries, and I want to challenge you guys to think about the situation. You haven't played football in a month and a half. Okay, let's say you're a starter and you haven't played football in a month and a half, and now you're playing the fastest paced offense in America. That's one. Now, second scenario, you're a scrub or a second or a third stringer. Now you're playing more. Or a third scenario, you're a guy who doesn't play at all, and now you're playing all the time, and you're playing against that same offense we talked about a second ago. Was Purdue instructed to take dives? I don't think so.
No.
The guys who were doing it are not wimps, and they were hurt, and they were hurt early.
I think one time Lawrence Johnson went down just to buy a little more time.
Lawrence Johnson couldn't walk, Anish.
And by the end of the game, it was real.
He couldn't get on the field.
And the point is that there was the one time that everybody uses to as the Zapruder film for hey, was when he looked at the sideline and he took a knee, right? It is what it is. It's like using a referee when you're running a crossing route, right? Yeah. It's like that is what it is.
Right.
But then if you look at the situations every other time, none of them were beneficial to Purdue. It would have been actually more beneficial for them to keep that momentum up. And it's
don't you think? Here's what I would say. I could see the coaching staff having said, which is you're playing a fast-paced offense. If you're cramping or if you're hurting, don't gut it out for the next play.
Right.
If you're hurting, go down for a minute and we will get you off the field.
Right.
I could see them saying that because that will cost us.
In your gap. Yeah. They're going to go right at that.
They're going to see you limping and they're going to go at you.
I don't know if you saw this, but you were watching the game, watching the TV broadcast again. In the middle of the third quarter, maybe second and third quarter, they put the snap clock. So the clock from the end of the previous snap to the beginning of the ones. Oh no, every step within 15 seconds, every time from literally the end, the ref has to set the ball, the offense is set, and they snap within 15 seconds every single time. I mean, to your point, they decided to be fast, and they are among the fastest teams that I have seen in college.
But so somebody asked the question is, why do you think, I think it's a good question. It's an interesting question to think. And I think about it. I think I've got the answer already. Why does Tennessee blast out to these leads against teams? Is it as simple as this pace is you don't know what to do with it? Or is it more? Okay. And here's my theory. My theory is simple. Okay. That pace is still predicated on how quickly your linemen can get set and get out there and continue to go, just like they reference. So that first quarter, they are fresh. Those big 300 pounds, and those are not lean linemen. Those are big, legit linemen. Okay. I mean, they're leaner than, say, the fat guys that you've seen just kind of lumbering around. But they're not. These guys aren't wastes. You know, this isn't Rodriguez's line from West Virginia, which that's the second fastest offense I've ever seen. So they get it all out in the first quarter. Then they're gassed the entire rest of the game. I really believe that. Do you guys agree, or do you?
It also puts your defense out there all the time.
It's the problem of the early Tiller days, right?
Yeah.
Like early Tiller, when it was basketball on grass, and all of a sudden everybody was like, "What is this?" Like you're putting a lot of stress on your defense.
When you
you're
score in
not,
a minute and a half, it's tough.
The clock,
for the D.
or you're punting in the minute and a half, right?
Right.
And
right.
the clock
If it's
does
not working,
not move.
Yeah.
It's a literally, it was a 5-hour game.
That's why those. I mean, the NFL team. What's that?
If you don't have the depth, which Tennessee doesn't, and I think like 2 or 3 years down the road, I think they will. You know, building it.
Oh, yeah.
You need to be, 3 or 4 deep at every position to be able to do this. But until you have the depth, like you are going to get bit in the back. But maybe it's worth it to just kind of build kind of an entertaining product, kind of the way that Tiller did.
And I didn't look at
right?
I didn't look at their season. They might have had a few near misses where they're 7-6 and they could easily be 9-4. I don't know. I would assume there probably were a couple where if you just had a little more, gas in the tank, maybe and then you would argue it is working.
It's a hard thing. So James Melton asked a question. If they would have slowed down sometime, maybe their offense would have done better. I think that's the question about that. That's like saying, well, if
not what they did.
Joe Tiller would have said, okay, we're just going to be smash mouth football for a quarter, right? That's not what defines you.
Yeah.
That's not the horse that brought you in. Like Joe Tiller used to always say, ride the horse that brought you, right? So your identity should be your identity. I have a hard time with saying, okay, we're now going to be a ball control offense just to give our defense a break. It's hard to switch gears, right? Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And that quarterback, I got to tell you, he is amazing at managing that system. They had the Michigan quarterback, the transfer. He ran it and did not do nearly as good of a job. But the guy pretty much doesn't throw picks. He is great at running the ball. He had
a great game.
Inside 15 yards, he was pretty accurate. The problem
he can't throw deeper,
and so this is the problem where it's Heupel again, where he's established. That's why it's like he's establishing a program identity. He's starting. He does not have the most stable of programs to resurrect. Let's just say nicely.
They needed to win quickly.
They need to win quickly. They need to have an identity in the SEC. Right. They're doing all of that, right? Yep. That being said, when your quarterback is really good at running a West Coast system, which is those intermediate routes, 5 to 15 yards, why do you keep going deep when he is not accurate deep? Even though they're burning some Purdue corners, there were so many of those where Purdue corners were burnt, by the way.
Yeah.
Like he could not hit them. So why did he keep going at them? I don't get it. It bothers me.
I think it went at them because of that little bit of success that they had. I think it's that simple. This is hilarious. Kevin Sprice says, when I look at Heupel, I don't think fast pace. Nor does anybody.
Man, he likes the food down there.
Yo, gosh. I did not know.
One thing you're thinking of fast pace is the Uber delivery, man.
Heupel got more Heisman votes than Drew Brees.
It's incredible to think that guy was a Heisman candidate. And you look at him now and he looks like he's never exercised.
It also is another sign of aging because, man, I feel old when I look at Josh Heupel.
Exactly. We remember him being a bad dude.
Yeah.
Even Painter, who is not the most, thin of people right now in his great coaching state, in his peak form. He's not, but you can still tell, like, he's a big dude. He's got a frame on him. He can tell that he was an athlete.
I wouldn't want him to back me down. I'll tell you that.
No.
Heupel, come on. He was a video analyst. You could have told me that he was a video analyst. I did not remember.
You know what?
Him at Tennessee.
This brings me to.
Him at Oklahoma. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a little non sequitur here. I had this thought. This is what happens when you're drinking bourbon after a Purdue bowl win. Dylan says
he embraces it.
I noticed Heupel walks with his belly out with pride. Well, as one should. You know what? It takes a lot of work to get that thing. So I had this thought. This is complete non sequitur, but sort of related. I was looking at Heupel and thinking about guys like Heupel and Kirby Smart, and they kind of just have that sort of suburban dad look, right? And I was thinking, imagine if the different conferences put together intramural football teams, the coaches, the Big Ten would have Braum at quarterback, I assume, right? You'd have Mel Tucker play whatever Mel wants to play.
Wherever he wants.
Whatever.
You'd
Respect
have,
you. All
you'd
respect
have
to you,
PJ Cuckoo Fleck would be a wide receiver. Not bad. Possession guy.
He can fly still. We see him run around dramatically all the
You'd
time.
have Fitz at middle linebacker. Think about where I'm going here. You'd have Burt as a lineman. Like now,
Ryan Day looks
SEC.
mighty square.
What's that?
Yeah.
But Ryan Day looks mighty square. You could get him as a fullback.
Yeah.
Right. See where I'm going here? None of those guys.
Franklin's in good shape.
Franklin's insane.
The only one, Burt is
listen. You gotta have some hogs taking up space.
He is a hog.
Now think about the SEC. Who in the SEC looks like they've ever even played football?
It's wild. It's insane.
It's incredible. None of them.
You can.
How about that? See, this is the value you get.
This is the type of thing bourbon brings to you.
For a second, I was like, "Wait a minute." Ed Orgeron could. Oh yeah, Brian Kelly's the head coach of Notre Dame.
Exactly.
I was
more suburban dads.
I was in South Bend all Christmas week, and everybody there. So most of my family, I have converted from Notre Dame fans to either outright Purdue fans or they were root for both Purdue and Notre Dame. And every single one of them is like, "Wow, are we glad that Brian?" Nobody is upset that Brian Kelly left, and in fact, most of them are like either, "Hey, this Marcus Freeman guy seems really cool," or, "Oh my God, I'm so glad they kept him. Like, I cannot believe that they got rid of Kelly and somehow held on to Marcus Freeman." And so this is a disaster, but that's okay. We'll be fine. It'll be okay. Yeah. Notre Dame is. It was fantastic. Listen,
did they get the number two recruit in America just like yesterday or something?
Yeah, I mean, like they've got the highest recruiting. They've got a higher recruiting class than anything that Brian Kelly's ever pulled in.
Now, yesterday was about the best that could have happened. Where for a while you were like, "Oh, all right, Marcus Freeman, happy for you," and then they did what Notre Dame does,
which is awesome. You're like, "Okay, good, more of that."
Perfect, exactly, more of that. Give everybody enough hope that you keep your job because we like you. But keep losing big games. Perfect.
Just keep winning enough so that eventually the Indianapolis Colts will need a new head coach and just hire him away. That's it. Right. That's what I want.
Yeah. Well, Wright keeps doing what he does about every fourth game. Oh, man. All right. So, hey, let me ask you guys a couple questions.
I forgot about Harbaugh and all that. John Faker reminds me that John Harbaugh.
He's in good shape, but he's weird khaki guy, so.
Yeah, he would.
He doesn't do the khakis anymore. Have you noticed this year?
He did change that.
He's abandoned the khakis.
He's
now
got. Didn't he have a Dockers contract for a bit?
He did, but he changed it up, and now they started winning.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Not anymore.
It was in the pants.
Go.
All right. Let me ask you guys 3 questions. Okay.
Oh, all right.
3 questions. These were premeditated. I actually did some homework. All right. What's your biggest surprise of the season? It can be positive or negative. It can be a game. It can be a single performance. It can be an ongoing theme. But can you give me a big surprise? Your biggest surprise?
Maybe this is lazy.
Okay.
Maybe this is lazy, but how could it not be Aiden O'Connell? Like, I did not think I liked him.
You and I talked about this. I think that's
We all loved the guy.
Yeah.
And we all loved his dedication. And when he came in as a walk-on and won games that when they weren't even that good a couple years ago and fought them down to the wire in that IU bucket game. But we all thought, well, he's just not the most talented guy on the bench. That's okay. He's going to be a backup. That's fine. So for him to come out and do this and to sling it 400 or 500 yards a game multiple times, I don't see how that. For me, that's maybe it's too lazy, too easy, but that's a big surprise for me.
Okay, it's a good answer. I think regardless, a good answer. Anish, do you have one?
In terms of the game, Michigan State, we were at the beginning of the year. We all pegged that Michigan State game as, they could win that. Maybe, Michigan State is bad now. They're going to be reloading. By the middle of the year, you're like, whoa, maybe Wisconsin can be one.
College football now.
Yeah. And that the performance that they came out with in that game after, not so great stretch earlier in the year, that was probably the single biggest surprise. In terms of performance, I mean, we had 3 different MVPs for the year, right? Which were David Bell, George Karlaftis, and AOC. I think you could. I mean, like it was the lazy take for the former 2, right? Calling for David Bell or George Karlaftis. Yeah, I mean, like AOC's.
They did exactly what everybody thought they would, which is pretty awesome, right?
I mean, it was incredible. They were superstars. Yeah, and Aiden O'Connell is now shaping up to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten, or at least the Big Ten West, at least best quarterback outside of Ohio State, maybe.
Oh yeah, Stroud's great. To me, it's a 1-2. I mean, but I put Stroud out in front. We had Michael Hogg ask about that.
Yeah.
You know, he said, "Is it Stroud and AOC?" Absolutely. You know, but I would put Stroud as a far one.
Yeah,
he's so good.
And with another year, he's going to be. I mean, like I was trying to come up with the Alabama, the Heisman winner, the Alabama quarterback.
Right, I know you're talking about. You know, I can't do it either. Right
I know, I'm old now.
Right.
I've had bourbon that's 57%.
Right.
But it's like him and
Bryce
Stroud, Bryce Young are all of a sudden like I thought they were probably a little overhyped too. Oh my goodness. Like these guys are
they're good. They're really freaking good.
Really great. Yeah.
They won't have to play each other until first weekend of December next year. Hey-o.
Right, exactly.
They're not on the season.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you another question, and this could go along. I asked you about the surprise could be negative or positive. Do you have a big disappointment this season?
I know. I mean, the disappointment is we got to 9 wins and still have not seen a PJ Fleck win. I mean, we've seen it, but we still didn't get a PJ Fleck win this year.
That one really bothers me because it was so close. And if Purdue just played marginally close to the way they played all year, then they win that game, and now they're a 10-win team. But honestly, I'm more disappointed by the Wisconsin game because Purdue played, and I'm doing this from memory, but they played very poorly in the first half. Purdue did nothing right in that first half. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was like a 1-point game at the half or something, right? And I remember thinking, okay, this is what now Purdue's program is becoming, where even if they don't play their best, they're in it against teams that they struggled with in the past. So play a good half, guys, and you win this game at home. I mean, and they played another terrible half. So that's probably that was, and you talk about no real bad games. It wasn't an atrocity, but start to finish was probably the most discombobulated. Like just nothing went right in that game, and so that's my.
This is Illinois,
Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin, yeah.
Right. Like my biggest disappointment of the year is that we didn't get to see Yassine for very long. We saw the glimpse of him that I thought he was going to be. Right, that you're like, okay, he's coming out. This is what guys like me who have been excited about that specific player, and then he gets hurt, and so I was like, tag. And I have very high hopes for Yassine next season.
Another a receiver to take the top off would be very fun.
Yeah, and he's a guy like he can run great routes. I think he was paying attention to Bell. I hope all these guys stick. It's such a weird thing where when a guy decides to transfer, like dang nabbit, like as long as it's something not like Carr, where it feels like there's tampering, I'm like, okay, this is just the nature of the game. You want a guy to feel comfortable and be where he wants to be. But that Yassine is a guy I want to see him grow up in black and gold because I think he's going to do something huge. So
I mean, and that's another point for the transfers in Brock Thompson. Purdue loses recruits a lot from Indianapolis because Indianapolis is a hotbed and a lot of places are recruiting Indianapolis. But it's always fun now that there's the secondary market to get players like Brock Thompson who Brock Thompson is the other end where he was under-recruited out of Indy, went to Marshall, and then came back. It's like after kind of proving himself. Right. And I think Brad Lambert probably knew of him. After being even though he's on the other side, probably, connections to him at Marshall. And so it's like, it is like that kind of thing where it's like, you're now recruiting year round. You're now trying to, get even more arguments to say that Purdue is a landing spot. And so on the other side of that, it is, hey, maybe you can come here and have that instant impact, even especially if you are kind of an indie product or an Indiana product.
Did you guys read this? I posted on Twitter that, the worst 5 or best 5, depending on your perspective. I think anybody would say it's the worst 5 from there. The worst 5 programs in college football for losing transfers. I use number 2 with 16 transfers that have already left. Okay. The great news is Purdue has gotten 3 in the last 2 years. That's an awesome thing to see. But it's funny to me, like I've said really overtly, I do not think things are clean in Bloomington right now because these things don't line up, right? They do not.
So actually what that probably is the new recruiting calendar. Because with the signing day and commitment days becoming earlier and earlier, you're like now all of a sudden IU got the majority of their class. after their, last two really good seasons, right? Like they had two back-to-back really good seasons. And by this summer, they were all kind of soft inked, right? Which is you're not going to see players flip immediately during the season that they're going to commit. Even with signing day in December. And so like this recruiting class is probably a byproduct of their two strong years.
You can say that, and I've heard this argument made. It doesn't work that way after a 2-win season, though. I mean, like,
it does, because what's going to happen?
Guys jump ship. Guys jump ship all the time.
They did have guys jump ship, but when they can't have a double digit number, a double digit number of guys jumping ship does not happen. Like without a coaching change, right? And so the other option is saying like all of these guys were already on board, already committed, and they're saying, hey, now it's time. It's the Brahm argument that he uses all the time. You can come here and have an immediate impact.
Sure, so sure. But why does this work both ways? When Purdue has a bad season, whether it's a 4-win season, which we've seen, or a 2-win season in the weird COVID year, everybody says, well, that's the reason why they didn't get what the class.
That's wrong. I mean, like, I think that's wrong.
I don't think it's wrong because it shows that it's true. It happened to Purdue. And you're not dealing with some coach that's toxic or old school or whatever. You're dealing with Brahm, who's been pretty good.
But also this is the first year when the calendar has changed like this. Like when the recruiting.
I don't believe it, and I'm going to say that I think IU's made a deal with the devil. I think we're going to find out that this is not on the up and up.
I think it'll fall apart also, but I think it's the other way. I think in the next 12 months we will see a ton of departures. I think we'll see a ton of transfers. Just happened. Right. So that's what I'm saying is that you won't see that in the recruiting classes anymore. You'll now see that in the transfer market the year after.
Right.
And so that's what I think.
So this is a big year for IU, you're saying.
In 2022, I think if IU doesn't get off to a great start, if there's a lot of internal strife, we will see a lot of players in December transfer.
One of the main reasons they're not going to get off to a great start is their quarterback problems. And they've lost their offensive line now is going to be depleted too. They've got tons of young talent, but those guys have to be plug and play young talent. That's a lot to ask.
And again, all of a sudden, Purdue already has one of them in that running back that's coming in. Yeah. All of a sudden, if you want to stay in the state, a nice soft landing spot is here for you at Purdue. And if you can play, that's it. And if you went to IU, you were probably also recruited by us. So it's like, that's another thing that, I actually see even in basketball too, the transfer, like this kind of new landscape of transfers being this kind of secondary market of player actually benefits teams like Purdue, where in basketball, you're recruiting 3- and 4-star players, where it's like all of a sudden you have this consistent identity for a team. You have a consistent coach. You have like players you have a constant level of success. Players know that, hey, if all else fails, I can come back, I can come here, or this will be a good landing spot. Or, hey, I remember that they beat Tennessee in that crazy game. Let me at least hear their sales pitch. Like all of a sudden, I think teams, even in basketball and in football, that have that stable identity like Purdue does, will benefit from this, and that's good.
I still think that the decks are so stacked in college football that it always benefits the big dogs. I don't care; they always seem to do.
They'll get the superstars,
really well. Right.
But we don't. Purdue doesn't need the superstars. Purdue needs depth. You're recruiting superstars, but you are hoping to transfer in depth. That's when you're at the level of Purdue, that is kind of the, that's the philosophy for the kind of the secondary market.
Well, let me ask you a third question in this 3-part here. And this is, I think I have a tendency to look ahead to the next season, regardless of when it is. A little too much, especially when things start rolling into things. Like we said, we all start talking 10 wins, 12 wins, 15 wins. Do you have a surprise that you will see happen in 22 right now, just based on what you've seen in the last month of Purdue football? Like, has there been a shift in what you think the surprise will be? Because I think we all believe double-digit win is going to happen. I really, this is all exaggeration. I don't, people may think we're being funny. I don't think any of us think 10 wins is a pie in the sky thing at all right now. So.
Nope.
But do you have a surprise that you think that will happen in 22 based on what you've seen in the last month?
I don't think the wide receiver room cumulatively takes a step back.
No,
That's not to say that Rondale Moore wasn't great. That's not to say that David Bell wasn't great.
Right.
These are kind of all-time Purdue legends at this point. I think that the wide receiver room is here to stay in terms of like production. It's going to come from, it's going to be a little more spread out, but it's going to still come. And again, we still have this issue of Milton Wright. Nobody's still quite sure what's going to happen, if he's coming back or not, if he's going to be. I think it's academic eligibility. That is the issue, which would be a huge bummer if Purdue, huge bummer for him, but also a huge bummer for Purdue football. But I don't think that the wide receiver room, and the receiving numbers take a step back.
I think it's really good, and I think the thing you could directly attribute it to what we saw with Brock Thompson, right? How good is Coach Shepard?
I was going to say, is there a good coach coaching that receiver?
Goodness gracious! Let's look at this coaching staff and just. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that they stay as long as they can. Coach Shepard is, to me, the most important coach to stick around because I just love the guy. I think he's a huge recruiting asset. His enthusiasm is contagious. But then on the other side of the ball, you got a three-headed monster defensive coordinator.
I want Hagen.
I tend to agree. I want all three to stay, but
I think they will.
I think Hagen's the one who defines the mentality of the defense more than Lambert or English. So, Jay, do you have any? I know you look like you're really thinking. You were pensively stroking your beard.
I was looking at the schedule for next year.
Yeah.
Do you see a loss? I don't.
Well, I'm looking. Well, you can joke all you want. Here's my. What was ask me the question again? How would you word it? What do an unexpected thing for next year?
Is there a surprise that you see coming in 22 now that you've seen the last month of this season?
Here you go. This is a little outside the box, but in our degenerate way. Purdue will be favored 10 times next year.
Whoa.
I was looking at that. I was thinking about that. Like, will
they could be favored 12
Penn
times?
State?
They could be favored 12 times next year.
I don't think No,
Iowa, they won't be. But yes, they'll be favored against Penn State. Absolutely, they'll be favored.
I hope
against
so.
Penn State.
They're
going to be at home against a 7-6 Penn State team. Let them be an underdog. Let them be an underdog after a 9-4 season, starting at home against a team tumbling down the mountain.
It's been a little bit since I've actually looked at the schedule, and I've known the teams, but looking at this schedule,
let me read it for the listeners
in your dulcet tones.
They start at home Labor Day weekend versus Penn State. Okay, even if they lost that game, I still think 10 wins is possible. But let's say they win that game. Imagine the way the fan base will be if they win that game. Because then they host Indiana State, then they go to Syracuse, then they host FAU, then they go to Maryland, then they host Iowa, then they go to Minnesota, then they host Wisconsin, then they go to Illinois, go to Nebraska, host Northwestern, go to Indiana.
Oh my gosh. No Michigan State.
Indiana will be better than they were, even if they're only a little. They'll be better than they were. It's hard to imagine Nebraska isn't better than 3-9. Hard to imagine.
It'd be fun to imagine them.
It'd be hilarious if they're not.
Right.
And it's November 12th, by the way. So if Nebraska,
my big surprise on that schedule, guys. Now that I've watched Maryland beat the hell out of somebody, that's a team that I'm like, okay, little Tua is.
They're no joke.
They're no joke. They looked awfully bad early in the season this year, but now Maryland looks like a respectable opponent. So that's the big change for me.
Mean, who knows, right?
Right.
Who's shown over the years? Who knows? Iowa might be angry coming into
the game. The game that they definitely won't be favored in is at Minnesota.
I don't know that I'll say definitely. It depends how you start the season.
It depends how you start the season.
If they're 6-1 or something, or 5-1, then they'll be favored.
Iowa and Penn State and Wisconsin will always be toss-ups. Every other one, it's pretty definitive.
My argument back on that is those games are far enough into the season that the Vegas will know what kind of team Purdue is, right? So, if Purdue is a good team, if Purdue's ranked 15th and they're 6-1 or something or whatever, then they'll be favored. That's what I'm saying. I will say favored 10 times next year.
Goodness gracious.
Time to be the hunted.
Yeah.
Time to be the hunted.
Yeah,
Big Ten West. If it's going to happen, guys, this
what
is
is
it.
Bert? I'm not afraid of Bert hunting us. I'm okay with it. I'm not afraid.
I'm
of
a little
Frost
afraid of
hunting
Bert.
us.
I'm a little afraid of them because here's the thing: that team plays hard for him, and even when he completely depantses them in front of the press, and they're dirty. They're dirty.
Right.
And, I mean, we saw that.
They're dirty, and that's a November game. You're already gonna be a little beat up.
Yeah.
They could be playing for a bowl at that point, thinking, "Oh, we still have a shot," and they probably will be next year. No games. It's a Big Ten, man. People can talk about the freaking SEC all they want.
Hey,
meat
Rutgers,
grinder, man.
Rutgers made the Gator Bowl or whatever stupid, and Rutgers had a great season.
You know what's hilarious?
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Let me just tell you a little aside. So that game was played on New Year's Eve, I believe. We had the TV on in the living room, and at 11, all the local, New Year's Eve BS cuts to the local news for a half an hour, which is hilarious. It's like a party all night, and it's like, now your local news, and people are staying in this year. That's news. Okay,
it's the same programming director does BTN, I bet.
Right,
brilliant.
So they go to sports, which I said to my wife, I was like, is there a person out there who's like, hold on, honey, I have to watch sports on the local news. I need to see what happened to my teams tonight. So they go to sports. And okay, remember, I'm in the New York area. I'm watching a New York affiliate, right? Which theoretically is Rutgers territory, right? They go to show the Gator Bowl highlights, and I have the sound down, right? Because you're not going to watch the news with the sound on. You're just like, all right, we're talking, whatever. And I look over, and I didn't watch the game at all. And the at the end of the news highlight, the chyron will pop up with the score, and it says Rutgers 38, Wake Forest 10. And I was like, and I hadn't paid any attention. I was like, I was like, good for them. And I was like, wait a minute. And all the highlights are like Wake Forest running over Rutgers. And I was like,
right.
I'm like, the local news, that's how bad local news is. This is an aside.
So bad.
Ryan's brother will totally, he's one of the ones who.
I'm in. I agree.
He's like, I hate local news. It's
always right. It's not good for anything.
Here's a person with no arms who plays the piano. Like, okay.
Great. Neat story.
Great story. That's great, Mom. I'm edified. No, but they can't even get the score right on the screen of a team theoretically that's local.
Well, you had an intern running things.
Absolutely.
Everybody was home.
How hard is it to write the score correctly?
Hard. Mash the keyboard.
I mean, come on, people.
So are there any other questions?
Kevin Spry has a great point. Nothing. This will definitely end well. And then we're gonna win the whole damn thing. Yeah, it's there's nothing.
Year 2022. Boiler Down is in the horoscopes in the sky. What is 2022 the year of?
It's the year of the Boilermaker.
Oh, it's the year of the Boilermaker.
Yep.
Somebody asks in there when the bye week is, and the answer is Halloween. So probably a good time to have a week off. It's the end of October,
right after Wisconsin.
Get some Reese's in them.
Mm-hmm.
What a season, guys! This was.
Oh man, exceeded your expectations.
It's incredible. What a good one, and I don't think it could have gotten any better with the parts in place that were in place. So,
no.
Hey, it's pretty cool to have a program coached by Jeff Brom, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
I mean, it took. We talked about how things were a little out of order, right? Like those first 2 years going to bowls were unexpected, probably even by him, but maybe in a sense he knew, this is how you get this program back. Is let's go for that. Let's win that first year, go 7-6, blow people's minds. Then they had the first year blues right there in years 3 and 4. They had that sort of all right, we're still building a program. We're not going to win all the time. And there were people who came down on him, which was a bit much. I mean, who do you want if you don't want Brom to be here? What do you?
It's not a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah. Well, you let him have his contract. You let Darrell Hazel play out most of his contract. So, I think you could probably let Jeff Brom do it. And here now he's rewarded you with the season that I would think most people were thinking was that next step after those first.
Just came a little delayed.
I mean, so how you're
but COVID goes out the window. 2020 goes out the window.
Right.
Exactly. That's
the
what I was about to say.
Season
which
is really the one that I mean, I know it's all those injuries, but
doesn't he get one crappy season, which by the way was still better than any Hazel season? No,
I mean, how easy is it now with that 9 on, in the win column when you're looking at Sports Reference, how easy is it to just overlook 2020 and just say like that 2 wins was 2020? It was COVID, it was injuries, it was weirdness, it was everything. And and 2019 was the legitimate, like, yeah, sure, the injury bug hit, but like it is a disappointment, like unequivocal disappointment. Like that was the disappointing year. But 7 wins, 6 wins, 4-2, 9. And not a fluky 9, a real 9. And so it's like, you want to see it again in 2022. You want to see it against this, but all of a sudden that makes it a little bit more realistic. And kind of those 8+ win season becomes kind of the expectation. And, what did you say, Dowd, when Purdue reached 8 wins? Even 8, not 9. 8 wins is not a thing Purdue does often.
No, right.
No.
And so it's like 8 wins, even if Purdue would have lost the bowl game, would have been a season to, to appreciate, right?
We talked, I think all of us landed partway through that game, seeing the effort and seeing the back and forth. I think we all landed on you said something like it's a moral victory and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's
right?
I tweeted it today after watching again, or yesterday. This is a moral victory wrapped in a real win.
Right.
I mean, like it really was. It felt like I was like, and I was okay with the moral victory. I mean, like it was a weird night
like that and lost on because Heupel had balls and they went for it on 4th down and they won the game. Okay, good for you, man.
All right, you earned it.
You win for it and you won it.
Yep.
But I kind of felt that way too during the game. But you come all the way back, you score those touchdowns in the 4th quarter. Like then I wanted it.
I'm on record in saying that most bowls that aren't the playoff, which is this is an argument to expand the playoff. Most bowls that aren't the playoff are mostly like scrimmages.
Yeah, who cares?
And so, first of all, saying that, you can still have fun as a fan base watching them. That's why we go to spring games to see our team play against our team.
Right.
Like that, you can still have a lot of fun watching it. But second, the point of a game like this is to actually see is to say goodbye to the guys that either don't have NFL futures or decided that they needed this one, this one more game of game tape. Just to see them one more time. Jalen Alexander, how awesome was it to see him that game? It was great. But then it was, hey, how's our team going to look next year? Are we lost without them? Do we have a lot of work to do without them? Or like, is it set? And that's why, win or lose, like on a late 2-point conversion, we had that question answered already. We were like, wow, we're going to be okay. Like AOC is awesome. All of these
got to be the best.
Are awesome.
It's got to be the best any of us have felt going into a season since probably 2004, right?
Well, somebody asked a good question. They said, is this the first time? It's the first time we've seen a quarterback that's going to come off a winning season and be the starter the next season since Curtis Painter.
And those were,
so it's time to
those were soft winning seasons though.
Yes. AOC 16, is that his number 16? AOC16.com, like Curtis Painter 12
masterpiece.
Yeah.
O'Connelly a masterpiece. Oh, it doesn't work. I gotta get back to the drawing board on that.
If they start 8-0, it'll be 8-0.
Oh, that's it.
How about that? Yeah.
And then you got to end the season because it's then you're 8-4 doesn't work as well.
Yeah. That's like 9 Indiana. It's the same type of thing. It just doesn't fit in when you say.
Oh man, I didn't even think about 9 Purdue, Indiana. Oh man, you just gave me some material.
Ask the guys off your tongue.
You got to ask the guys at home field to make that shirt.
Exactly.
Because they were 9 Boiler.
9 Purdue, Indiana. No, in black and gold, 9 Purdue, Indiana. They owe us one now.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Cash cow.
That is fantastic.
Speaking of cash cows, guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show week in, week out without our wonderful sponsors.
Our friends are 78 minutes in are being mentioned.
Exactly. If you're still here, I'm sure you want to check out martinvintage.com. You go to martinvintage.com, get some cool stuff. They've got a great bucket shirt that now I wore mine this week because it talks about Purdue owning the state and it's our bucket. Go get a Martin Vintage bucket shirt or another one. Enter Boiled at checkout for 15% off. Go over while you're at it on the interwebs. You know, the holidays are over and you've got lots of cash afterwards. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Head over to Gridiron Metalworks. Get yourself a spatula, or it looks like Anish has a grate to help him in jousting. Whatever your fancy
you
is.
can't get but the humans on this cannot get this one. This one is just
yeah, I've got one on my wall. That's elite.
I've got one of those too. That's a special thing.
Center of your grill can be custom and beautiful, and Derek and Paul will hook you up. Interboil check out there for 15% off. Very nice stuff. And then you're going to be on campus for a game this winter. You just are, because you feel the draw. And when you're on campus, head over to AJ's. Grab a pint, grab some Italian beef, grab some of those delicious macaroni and cheese bites, which make me look like I do now. EatAJ's.com.
Motor City Boiler just set you up. You're a little late, buddy. You're a little late on the. He says, any ideas about what to do if I'm hungry in West Lafayette? I'm stumped. Yeah. We're way ahead of you there. Kevin Spryce. I can't even read it. Per nine.
See, it rolls right off the tongue.
It does. It works so well.
Man, I'm so mad.
O'Connell for Heisman. That's good.
For Heisman.
Oh, it's funny.
Mercy.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
What a good season.
Yeah, what a fun season. Good time. And do appreciate everybody who tunes in. Really
thank Michael for jumping on so often with us this season.
Michael's on the podcast right now. Michael, your thoughts?
His mic.
Great. Oh, thanks. Oh, that was great. Yeah. Really useful. Really valuable.
Good stuff, buddy. I do remember you making fun of me for saying 8 wins was possible. I remember, in fact, you recorded it and put it on our Instagram.
He put it on Instagram, yeah. By the way, you gotta love the consistency of Michael's Instagram. I remember he was so excited. He was gonna set Instagram afire with his.
You did it twice.
They were good. By the way, they were good. I'm not knocking the guy, but then
you are, and you should.
So, then he disappears
for the rest of as things get good.
Mike Tyson.
That's Michael's energy. Michael thrives in the gutter.
Exactly.
Things are getting good. He's like, what am I supposed to do? It's fine.
What am I going to complain about?
Yeah, his high point is picture him in front of a burning dumpster, right?
That was funny. That was very funny. I did enjoy
like one of their 4 losses.
It was the Minnesota. I think it was the Minnesota
post. Like, I'm not watching anymore, and I guess he stayed true to his word.
Good, yeah, exactly. 2 things. We all went to multiple games, and that was a thrill. It was awesome. Every time we went, it's still strange to me that people Boiler Down. Nobody recognizes him by the face. But everybody recognizes him when they hear his wonderful dulcet tones.
I like how every story you tell is, as I say goodbye or hammer down, they go, hey, love the podcast.
Weird.
But
I think my voice sounds completely normal like everybody else's.
It does. I don't let him tell you anything else.
Exactly.
And
I can't do it
recognized as the tall brown guy.
Indeed. But when we were there, it's strange. It's so strange, but it's so wonderful whenever people say that it's great. It's so weird in a humbling kind of way to say, when people are like, hey, you whatever about getting through bad times. It's always strange. But what I want to say is that 2021 sucked. It was bad. Particularly, I did not have a great 2021. I did not enjoy it very much at all. But this was a good thing. This was fun. It was great. And Purdue football, Purdue basketball, it's so stupid that sports does this to us. We've talked about this in the best of times, where it's so stupid that sports puts us in a bad mood when Purdue just chokes. The Purdue Cincinnati basketball game. It was so stupid that I had to take a walk after that. But on the flip side, it's so wonderful that it actually does good for us when it is good and fun and you have community, and it's very nice. This is my
community part. It's such a big portion of it. That's the thing that's so neat about bowl games. And if you had the chance to go to Nashville this time or last time, that's what I remembered. It was just a magical night the night before, just walking around Broadway and being surrounded by Purdue people. That's just cool, right? I mean, and I look at pictures. That's the other thing. I looked at pictures before and after the game. We're just as happy before the game as we were after the game, honestly. We were stoked going into the thing because it was fun to be there, So Yeah, the community is such a big deal, and it's so great to be around a crowd. Michael Hogg says he saw me after the Michigan State game. That was awesome, right? That's one of those celebratory moments that's a big deal. Like being there on the field with a bunch of people. That was really, really cool.
Well,
good moment.
We talked about being in Louisville for the near win over Virginia, and part of the element that would have made it even better had it happened was the fact that everybody was there. Not everybody. I know not all of you made it, but so many people that we either interacted with or knew, either well or through the interwebs.
I got to meet Handel for the first time there. That was awesome.
But then you'd run into, Anish and I, right behind us was Morgan Burke.
Right.
And then we're out in the concourse and there's Jeff Brum. And then we go to leave and there's Ray Davis. Yeah. Right. Like that was so cool.
Own Ray Davis.
Right. But that was so cool. And I think that extended into the bowl game because I don't know if you guys saw, we all see this and maybe you don't realize how unique. I do think this makes the Purdue sort of family. Did you see how many former Purdue players were talking about that game?
It was awesome.
Now you don't see, I don't think, that many Alabama players chirping about an Alabama win. I think it's a factory, and they go there, and they're proud they went there. But...
And it's back to the Ryan Nanny thing that he said earlier, which is don't be good, be Purdue. Which is like all of a sudden, like these are the programs that enjoy the good moments. Which is why it's like this was such a great season. I think we'll have another one this coming year. It's going to be awesome. We will see you all. The amount of money in 2022, the year of the Boilermaker, that I'm going to spend traveling to Purdue games is just going to be absurd. But awesome. I'm all in.
Yeah. I think I told you guys this, and I mentioned it. I sat a couple rows behind Barant and Gorin, and Matt Mitrione was in my row at the Tennessee football game, and watching those two, because Mitrione at one point went down to stand with Brandon on the aisle, and watching those two watch the football game as passionately as three of us do, right? Like really getting into it, really caring, telling Tennessee fans to shut up when they're booing a guy that's injured, that type of thing. It made me have a little more, let's say, courage, knowing that Matt Mitrione might have my back. That's a good feeling too.
We all know that when you're in the crowd, you need courage.
I do. I'm usually I go into a shell.
Awesome. Wallflower. Yeah.
Yeah. I get a little bashful. That's true. It's true.
It's yeah. It's a different experience watching a game.
Somebody came up. We had a group of 12 people, I think 13, 12. And they said, one was down at the end of our group, and they said, "Hey, I couldn't hear you during the game." My son, who sits right next to me, he said, "I could." And he said, "And I can tell you other people around us could. So if you don't think he was yelling, you're mistaken." So yeah, I didn't, you don't get hoarse from not yelling. So
2022 basketball banner and 15-win football season. We'll see you later.
Yeah. I love you guys. Good night.